Hey, this is Mike Philippi. Thanks for joining me at Musings of an Old Guy, especially right now as we take a look backwards using hindsight 2020 vision as we look back at 2020. What in the world happened? We'll take a look at a lot of the events, and then this is part one, and in part two, we're going to wrap it up by taking all that back to the Lord and getting His perspective on what lies ahead. Well, hey friends, and welcome back to Musings of an Old Guy. This is the Mike Philippi Show, where we go through whatever is on our mind at the time, various things, and I hope you enjoy our time together today. This is actually the first day of 2021, the first day of the new year, January 1st, 2021. I can't even believe that 2020 has already come and gone. Can you believe it? Seriously, this is one of those times in my life where I think, I remember when 2020 started, I thought, man, this is a great year. We're going to call everything 2020 vision. We're going to have, things we're going to get done this year and things we hope to accomplish this year. And wow, it went a lot different than I thought it would. Got a lot to talk about as we move into the new year. I'm going to just hit a couple of highlights right now of what did 2021 look like from more or less a political standpoint, a political point of view? What happened culturally as well? So let's jump into this very quickly. The very beginning of all this started as COVID-19, or whatever we were calling it back then. And SARS-CoV-2, and then COVID something, and then COVID-19. But do you know when that actually started? I mean, the Wuhan outbreak, do you remember? That was actually in December 2019. Then it spilled over into January and then February, and then it became quite a big deal in March. So starting this year, we started with COVID. And of course, that was really crazy because we were hearing about COVID before the news ever did, that it was some kind of a thing that was going on in China. They were trying to keep a secret. And then I started hearing from other channels that perhaps this was something they created, something that was created in a lab as a biowarfare. To this day, do you know if that's true? What's the truth? I don't think it started in the Wuhan wet market. I don't think it did at all. There's too much evidence that there's more going on there, but still very hard to tell exactly what's going on. Seriously. So then we went from COVID-19 being discovered and being spread everywhere to masks and mask enforcement. I'm going to say a lot of things. I got a list of things. They're not necessarily in exact chronological order, but these are things that happened this year. Just doing a review of this year. Do you remember? Suddenly there were the lockdowns, the shelter-in-place lockdowns. They were a lot more mild, and it was, if you really care about your family, you really care about everybody else, why don't you stay home for a little while? And it was kind of like, yeah, let's do that. And for 14 days, everybody stayed home. It was kind of fun, and we kind of took it in stride. It was kind of like a vacation. Then they talked about unemployment being extended, and they talked about stimulus checks. Remember that? That was a long time ago. But it made it even more fun. There were people staying home. There were people that actually could be working, but the unemployment was so good. I know several people personally who were making more money not working than they were when they were working. So that was kind of weird. Notice how the shutdowns were unfair and arbitrary. Restaurants and churches had to close. Strip joints and Costco and Walmart got to stay open. What's with that? So you see, and then they coined the phrase the non-essentials, and most of us were non-essential, unless somehow the elites got some benefit from us being open. But definitely churches, you want to shut down churches. You can't have people worshiping, but you can have people side by side, crammed into Costco. And I was at Costco at times, just before the lines and before the monitoring and metering. But there were hundreds and hundreds, well, literally thousands of people in Costco at any given hour. Then all of a sudden it started hitting pro sports. Remember that? And you start seeing NBA, NFL, and other sports not happening. And then the elections, the campaign started getting into full force. Trump was doing his rallies. People were talking about the campaign. But at that time, there was no such thing as Joe Biden. We were still looking at primaries and trying to figure out what was going on there. And at that point, Kamala Harris, or yeah, I think I said that right, Kamala Harris, she hated Joe Biden. She thought that he was a molester, that he was a pervert, that he was bad to women, and that he was a racist. And she called him all those names on stage. As soon as he got the nomination and asked her to be his co-pilot, boy, she was all over that. And in fact, many times has called it the Harris-Biden campaign, right? So you can see the agenda from the very beginning. Now, this isn't because I am pro-Trump or anti-Biden. That is not it at all. That's not my position. My position is pro-America, pro-freedom, pro-freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom of movement, freedom of choice. And that's what it comes down to. Also, I want a leader in the White House who understands economics, who understands negotiation, who understands the American people. And it seems right now that Trump is that guy, has been that guy, and has done a great job. Biden, are you kidding? Listen to the Biden gaffes. Oh, so many of them. He's losing his marbles, the poor guy, and they keep parading him around like that. Why do you think that is? Why do you think they keep parading Joe Biden around as though he has any weight in any of this? Well, you can guess why. Because it isn't about Joe Biden. It's not even about Kamala Harris. It's about Barack Obama and the Clintons. It's about this deep state that isn't even in the state anymore. It's about the puppet masters and them trying to gain control and trying to destroy the Trump administration. Does Trump anything that's conservative, anything that's right-wing or that's Republican? As you saw, remember this. You've got to remember these things. But as you saw, anything that Trump tried to do, they gave him no praise. They gave him no thanks. And they attacked every single thing. And as this COVID thing started taking shape, Trump immediately shut down travel to China both ways and to Europe. And what did Biden say about that? Biden said, what are you, a xenophobe? Come on, what's wrong with you, man? Get it together. And what did Nancy Pelosi say? Come on down to Chinatown. We're having a party down here. There's no problems at all. And then immediately turned on Trump and said he didn't do anything fast enough. They were the ones that weren't fast enough. They were the ones that didn't get it. Trump got it. He worked immediately. And then there was this call. We need 30,000 ventilators. We got to get them right now. We need hospital. So they put up tents all over New York and other cities. And they brought in the boat, the medical boat, and put it in the harbor there. And nobody used it. A couple hundred people maybe at most. We have over 1,000 ventilators just sitting in a warehouse. We didn't need all that. They told us that the hospitals were inundated with people and the beds were over and there were people laying on the floors and there was just no place. People were dying and their bodies were being dragged into the hallways. Listen, all that stuff turned out to be fake. All the pictures and everything you heard, the majority of those pictures of the overcrowded hospitals and people in body bags was from a big boat wreck that happened back in 2013, where for one night they had a bunch of bodies. There was a terrible catastrophe. That wasn't from COVID. And I started visiting local hospitals and they were empty like ghost towns. There were a few hot spots, don't get me wrong, but nothing like you might assume. Maybe 1% or 1/10 of 1% of the hospitals in this country had even a little bit of excess traffic. For the majority of it all, nothing was happening. And then we started learning that COVID was being made up. That they were writing COVID on anything. 2 guys died of gunshot wounds in Colorado, and it was written down as COVID. Come on. Come on, man. So we saw all that happening. And then these huge Trump rallies. Huge. 30, 40, 50,000 people at Trump rallies. And Biden, no rallies. Nothing was happening. He was in his basement. He'd get on to try to say a few things. He couldn't even get that right. They made a couple commercials from his basement, and he got those wrong. Yet they continued to parade him about as though he was the candidate of choice. You remember this? This all happened so fast. It seems like a long time ago. This is one of the few times I usually say, oh, it seems like yesterday, but this was a long year. And then remember Trump got COVID-19. I don't remember how far down the line was. Trump got COVID-19, and there were people in the Democrat Party saying they wished that he would die. They hoped that he would die. Can you believe that? That shows the kind of stuff these people are made of. Not good. And he got over it very, very quickly. He had a cocktail of drugs, whatever it was. And, who knows? It was probably hydroxychloroquine. But they said some ivermectin, some other stuff, whatever it was. He was over it in 3 days. Remember Andrew Cuomo got it? And holy moly, he was out for 2 weeks. Or maybe it was Chris Cuomo. I can't remember which one of those. I know Chris got it too. Andrew's brother, the newscaster. Both of them are as corrupt as can be. And again, I don't say this because I'm a Democrat. I mean, I'm not a Democrat or I'm a Republican or any of that. I say that because I'm just trying to weigh out what is true. I'm trying to weigh out what happened and weigh out how many times Chris Cuomo made drastic comments and he was wrong and never recanted. Things about Trump or things about, well, remember when they found the Hunter Biden laptop and they all mocked that and said it was Russian disinformation. Giuliani had been duped. Now that the election is over, guess what? Oh, now the Hunter Biden story is a real scandal. It's something to be concerned about. But during the election, it was laughed at, it was mocked, and it was suppressed by big tech. This is the year that we've endured. And you know all this stuff. I'm just going to recount it and see what you think. So that was the laptop from hell. Had all those emails and texts and pictures and the lifestyle of Hunter Biden, which is just replete with filthiness and ungodliness. This man is a corrupt, sad individual. And he's riding on his daddy's shirt tails and going around the world collecting money on that name so that they can have access to the big man. And millions, literally billions of dollars. And then Biden himself saying that he would not release money to the Ukraine unless they got rid of one of their prosecutors. And we're talking about $1.5 billion that was already earmarked for Ukraine. But Biden pulled a fast one and said, you get rid of that prosecutor before, or I'm not giving you any of the money. And you can find Biden online saying that, laughing about it and saying, well, guess what? Look what happened. They did get rid of the guy. And he released the money. That's as crooked as it comes. As crooked as it comes. That should be front page. What? You did what? Now, who knows? That may be happening all over the place in the world of politics. Just you don't run into it so blatantly, so clearly, and it's completely ignored. Just like when Hillary smashed her servers and lied about all of that. Just like when Hillary and Obama pulled a fast one on the whole Benghazi story. Do some homework. We have some evil going on in the deep state. Most of it coming from the left. Most of it coming from the left. Now, the right has its share of shenanigans as well. And then the whole Biden story was completely suppressed. Remember, they wouldn't even allow you to talk about it. It came out of the New York Post. They're the ones that broke the story. And then if anybody told that story or read the article from the New York Post, they were banned from Facebook and from Google. I mean, from YouTube. It was unbelievable. From Twitter, they banned it. And now it's at the place where if you even say that there might be a fraud going on with the election, or you might say that COVID isn't altogether true, you get taken off right away. So we're in a different era. In 1 year, our world changed. Now, maybe not changed, but things were uncovered or brought into the light that had always lived in the shadows, and now they don't care anymore. And then remember, the capital of Israel was moved to Jerusalem for the first time in 70 years. An amazing thing that Trump did. Golan Heights and the West Bank were recognized as Israel's sovereign land for the first time. The whole Palestinian question and the two-state question and all that's been going on for years and years. And all these state leaders trying to bring peace to the Middle East. And what Trump came up with is saying, look, I don't care what happens with regard to that. Here's the deal. If you want to play ball, Middle Eastern countries, with America, you got to play ball with Israel. Treat them like real people. Treat them like a real country, and then we can have open commerce. If you don't, no. Well, so he made a pitch to the Palestinians, this, that, and the other, not including land, nothing like that. He offered them some pretty good deals, and they said no, and he said, that's fine. You think about it. That's up to you. But in the meantime, I'm going to go play ball with all the other Middle Eastern countries that surround Israel. And all of a sudden, you start seeing these peace deals unfold. Now, that's the art of the deal, folks. That's the man we have in the White House. Trump has accomplished more in this year than most presidents in all their 8 years. Now, his 4-year stint as president has been remarkable in the economy, in jobs for all of us, but particularly the minorities in that, tremendous job numbers. And also bringing a much broader tent into the election. All these new Middle East deals. Trump was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize for bringing all these things about. Of course, he was rejected. And I understand that, because really to get a Nobel Peace Prize, you have to have done nothing but be elected as president. And before you even take the Oval Office, you can be elected or be granted a Nobel Peace Prize for having done absolutely nothing at all, ever. In fact, there were more wars started by Obama than you can imagine, and no wars started by Trump. Peace deals coming to many Middle East countries, and now just can't see our way to give him a nod for that peace prize. And then remember, George Floyd got killed by that wicked cop who put his knee on his head. George Floyd died an awful death. And the world erupted on behalf of George Floyd. And the Black Lives Matter movement got launched bigger than it ever had been. And all of a sudden we had riots in the street. We had people carrying giant posters of George Floyd. And George Floyd became the poster child for equality and the civil rights movement. Let me tell you something about George Floyd. I'm sad he died that way. And I believe that cop that did that was not doing the right thing. All those cops were not doing the right thing. They should have worked together. I understand some of those cops were novices. They didn't know. But that whole thing that came down was awful. Now, having said that, that doesn't give George Floyd any platform for being a hero. George Floyd was not a hero. George Floyd was a drug user, a drug dealer. He was a troublemaker. He'd been in prison 9 separate times. He'd held people at knife point and gunpoint, a pregnant woman. He was an evil man with an evil agenda, and it all caught up with him, unfortunately. And at that day, he was passing around counterfeit bills and then sitting in his car doing drugs all that time while the cops showed up. And then he couldn't breathe and all of that. That was before anybody's knee was on his neck. That's because he was high as a kite and he was taking drugs that messed him up. So do a little research on that and you'll find out the whole George Floyd thing was a false flag event to get us all looking at the wrong things. You know, don't pay no attention, know what's going on over here because we're going to do something over here. So that's what was going on with the George Floyd. But the whole country erupted into the Black Lives Matter and the riots on the street. And here's what happened. BLM riots were called peaceful protests. These people were burning up police cars, burning down buildings, throwing fire bombs, Molotov cocktails, attacking cops with bricks and bottles and paint-filled water balloons, breaking curfews, doing all sorts of illegal, aggressive, violent behavior. These were called peaceful protests. And guess who did get in trouble? None of these people got in trouble. Who got in trouble? The police. The police were the bad guys. The police were attacked. Buildings were set ablaze. Businesses were smashed. Private businesses were smashed and looted. And the cops just stood by and watched these people. I remember watching Walmart, a larger business, and another couple big business like Office Depot or something, completely looted while the cops stood by and watched these people carry out TV after computer and did absolutely nothing. We're in that dark day the Bible talks about, where good is called evil and evil is called good, and lawlessness is running rampant in the streets. That's 2020. And what 2020 has done is give us 2020 vision into the world ahead, into where we're going. Is this the end times? Is rapture just around the corner, if not today? Is the Lord's return just a breath away? We'll talk about that in my next two videos that I will do. Is this the end times, and when is the rapture? We're going to talk about that. But I'll tell you, man, if this ain't the end times, I don't know what is. Hey guys, join me for part 2, where we continue looking back with our 2020 vision at the year behind us, and we're going to take a special look into the year ahead and bring that right before the Lord. Have a great time of prayer. So join me in the next session, part 2 of the year in review. Please join us, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and make comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say. God bless you. Have a great start to your new year. See you in the next video.